Thank you, Gemeem and Callie, for being here today. And for everybody who's here, we're going to have a few minutes at the end for a Q&A. So I will hand it over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here and to share some of what we do and what our fight is and why we're doing it. So I'll pass it to Callie to give you a little background on who we are.
Yeah. So we have a little presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to go into present here. Okay. We can all see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So we're just going to start with who we are. Here we go. So we call ourselves a movement. It's a Bridgeport-based movement, a resident-led movement in Connecticut's largest city. We, like Rachel said, were founded in 2016, and we're a grassroots member-based organization, and we're really committed to strengthening civic engagement in ourselves and in our communities. The reason we do that is so we can dismantle systemic racism and corruption in our city and build the just, equitable, livable, and democratic Bridgeport that we know is possible.
Yes.
And I'll pass it to Gemeem.
Okay, and so we are here today because we want to have this conversation about what we're fighting for. And at the end of the day, we're fighting for a real democracy here in Bridgeport and in our state, and we're fighting for free and fair elections. And we need to, in Bridgeport, end authoritarianism. You know, Bridgeport is basically the canary in the coal mine. We have experienced what the nation is going through now. And so we know of all the steps to authoritarianism. We know all the fears. We know what the results bring. And so we want to, so as we fight to get our democracy back, we want to help save democracy in the country. It's very serious, and so we'll get to the similarities between like what has already happened in Bridgeport and the road to which we are as a country.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the things that we know in Bridgeport that we're seeing play out on the national level are unqualified patronage jobs. That's embedded in our local government here. A system that thrives on loyalty and partisanship. So loyalty to the party um, takes primary precedent over everything. They have defunded our public education.
And are trying to privatize that. What we've also seen is the stealing of elections. And that stealing of elections has resulted now this year in 11 people being arrested for various absentee ballot election fraud charges. So we do not have free and fair elections here in Bridgeport. We also have a government that is run by a felon. Our mayor is a felon, just as Donald Trump is a convicted felon. And he runs the city with the Democratic Town Committee leader like a criminal ring, you know. So there is a conspiracy to use the resources of the city to line their own pockets. And they threaten people who work for the city. So, and people live under the threat of retaliation. If they step out of line, they can lose their jobs, or their family members can lose their jobs if they work for the city. We've also experienced attacks on our First Amendment rights when we show up to simple city council meetings to voice concerns about free and fair elections and other things, the police have been called preemptively to quail our voices under the guise of fear. So all of the things that we are, you know, rightfully so panicking about on the national level, we experience on a day-to-day here in Bridgeport.
So, then it comes to, well, why does that matter? If you don't live in Bridgeport, why does that matter to you? Or should it matter to you? And so we just sort of laid out, that our nation is on a fast track to what has already happened in Bridgeport. And therefore, we should all be very afraid and worried. Secondly, if democracy is not functioning in our state's largest city, and we have the second largest voter roll in the state, second only to Stanford, then can our state really claim to have a functioning democracy? Especially when we know that statewide elections for governor, lieutenant governor, all the state held offices have in the past hung on the votes that come out of Bridgeport. So Bridgeport has been the determining factor in statewide elections. And if those elections cannot be trusted, can we trust our state's election results?
We should be really concerned, and it really matters because capitulation to partisan power is a huge problem. And if you have been trying to make bold changes at the state level and feel like you're hitting your head against the wall, Bridgeport is the reason. You know, what we've seen out of state leaders and some of our federal leaders is that they have come down to Bridgeport knowing the election issues here, knowing that our democracy is broken, and they have stood with the mayor and they've stood with our town committee chair in spite of the fact that elections were stolen. We had Governor Lamont come down here last year when we were in the midst of a bitter election fraud case where the election for mayor was overturned by a judge, and Lamont came down here and stood with and endorsed Mayor Ganem, even in the face of that. And right now, several of the people who committed the fraud on behalf of Ganem are now on trial, and Lamont, hasn't said a word. No one has spoken out about what has happened here in Bridgeport, and not only did over the years Lamont come down, but Jim Himes has come here and done the same thing and endorsed. Chris Murphy has, Richard Blumenthal has, you know, everyone comes down here and pretends that we have free and fair elections, and actually we don't. Our votes here have been suppressed in ways that you all probably could never imagine if you're not living here.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the how, like how the operation happens. So you heard us say that they steal elections, but like how are they actually doing it, right? So the first thing is before an election, operatives who are part of the Democratic Town Committee in Bridgeport go into the town clerk's office and sign out hundreds of absentee ballot applications.
And they take these applications to senior housing places, to public housing, to Spanish-speaking households, and they coerce voters into, quote, signing up for absentee ballots without explaining the laws or rules.
Or they simply forge the application and the voter's signature. So both things are happening simultaneously.
Yes. Often, They circulate the applications. There's tied to the circulation of these applications are tied to things like renters rebates. They promise people groceries. We've heard them promise people mattresses. We've heard that they promise people cash, fire extinguishers, Section 8 offers, and like Alfredo Castillo just got rearrested, I think for the third time. Um, and he went around offering people grapes, like no lie. He had, it's in the affidavit, it's in the news reporting that he showed up to a family's house in a truck full of grapes and brought grapes up to someone, and had grapes and an absentee ballot application. And so it is out of control, out of control. And what you're looking at here is an absentee ballot application log. So if you see on here, you can see that people take them out by the hundreds, right? There's people taking out 200 at a time, 100 at a time, 50 at a time, and then they come back, right? So if you see 50 on this sheet, you'll like come back in like another week or so, and people will take out another 50. And so this is a public record, and oftentimes people will go take out these applications, or what they did in the past is they would show up like months in advance to start this process.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's your math, right? On the bottom, Gemeem. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like total. I think we were trying to total because this was for our September 12th mayoral primary. And so the operation kicks into highest gear when we are having our local elections. And especially when it's the mayoral year where we have mayoral and city council all on the same ballot. Uh, that's when they they really kick into high gear, and Bridgeport churns out absentee ballots like 11 to 1 for other cities,
Yeah.
Our ratio is crazy.
And if you can see on this sheet, I have there totaled 1,285. That's just the number on that sheet, and that represented like within a month's time. The sheet underneath that had 2,600, and that was in probably like a month's time. So they're just taking them out,
Yeah,
quickly.
Excuse me, one question.
sure.
How many registered voters are there in the Bridgeport area total?
We have about 75,000 registered voters.
Thank you.
Mhm.
How many of them are alive?
Yeah. We're gonna assume that most people voting are alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then once they've signed out thousands of absentee ballot applications and they've circulated them to the voters that they're targeting, right? They then bring them back and submit them to the town clerk. Often they'll hold them until the last possible date and submit them all at once. And that's because once you submit the applications to the town clerk, the names of voters who have requested absentee ballots actually becomes public. And so the other campaigns can see who has requested an absentee ballot. So sometimes they hold all their applications until the last possible minute, then they flood the town clerk's office, right? And so I mentioned this public record, right? Some of you might not know, but the system that we currently have means that when you apply for an absentee ballot, you are then put on a list that is, in fact, a public record. In our town, in our city, they call it the absentee ballot report. And you can get it, you can sign up to get it emailed to you from the town clerk. And the town clerk sends it out every couple of days in Bridgeport. And the report tells you when the ballots have been mailed out to which voters. It gives you the voters' names, the voters' addresses, when the ballots have been mailed.
Yeah.
And so the campaigns know exactly when to go to voters' homes, back to voters' homes.
It also tells them how they requested it. So if they came to the office in person, or if it was mailed. So there's lots of information on that list. And then when they return to the voter's home, like the operatives or the people who had given them an application, they then show up at these people's homes and they tell them how to vote, or they will fill out the ballot for them, and or take an uncompleted ballot and submit it without the person's knowledge. And if you are at all interested in like that, you can look at the arrest warrants of people who are either about to make a plea or go to trial, and you will see several people describing exactly what happened to them. And they had only realized that their vote was stolen when, last year in 2024, or 2023 now, like the story really broke, and we saw that those infamous videos of the woman Wanda Jeter putting absentee ballots into the drop boxes.
And we actually have a couple of um, uh, quotes from the various arrest affidavits here in Bridgeport. So down below, we see a witness telling state investigators she provided Wanda, and Wanda is the vice chair of our local Democratic Town Committee. She provided Wanda with 2 uncompleted absentee ballots. Wanda opened the ballots and told her where to sign. She signed the inner envelopes of both ballots and handed the unselected ballots back to Wanda.
In another example, Wanda and Alfredo showed up at his home the next day after the ballots arrived. He was very specific in explaining that he, his wife, and his son did not select the candidates on the respective ballots. He stated that Alfredo and Wanda selected the candidates by bubbling in the circles on the ballot.
And Alfredo is Alfredo Castillo, who is also on our Democratic Town Committee and is also just was reelected to our city council this past Tuesday.
Yeah. And then the third one says she never bubbled in any of the selections for office. She believes they did that for her. She said they wrote on the ballot and they make me sign it. The male and female then took the ballot, which had been put in an envelope, and they left her residence. So these 3 examples are just 2 people who are doing this, but there were lots of people who are doing this same behavior. And over and over and over again, we see people who are vulnerable, who don't understand the voting laws, who maybe are not speaking English as their first language. And people are going around and basically saying, I'll do it for you, or I'll take it, all of which is illegal.
Okay, so now we want to just talk briefly about how our current system of absentee voting actually allows all of this to happen. In the United States, we are supposed to be able to vote safely in secret. This is a key pillar of democracy, and it is why we have the 75-foot rule. So what is the 75-foot rule? Anybody know?
Yes,
What is it?
it's, you can't do any campaigning closer than 75 feet from the building where the voting
Right.
takes place.
Right.
Absolutely.
And why do you think we have it? Like just had to guess what the purpose behind it is.
Voter intimidation.
Right, voter intimidation to protect voters from voter intimidation. What else?
So someone can't stand over you and make sure you vote the way they want you to?
Absolutely.
So someone can't stand over you, right, and coerce you into voting a certain way. It also makes the ballot box sacred, right? In a certain way, it keeps it completely nonpartisan. It keeps it a sacred space for the activity of voting, right? So, but the way that absentee voting is currently functioning in Connecticut, everyone can know if they want to, exactly who requested an absentee ballot, when they requested it, exactly when that ballot gets mailed out, and exactly when it is returned. And anyone can have this information because it is public record because of the system that we currently have. So the record is public and people in Bridgeport get it because of how our system is currently designed.
Right. And the reforms that were passed to improve the system, which included having serial numbers on the applications and having the absentee ballot log and the absentee ballot report, actually is what is allowing campaigns to track people's votes. Like I think we understand that at a certain point, people wanted to try and protect people's votes. But what ended up happening is that with making all of these records public, that it just opened the door to campaigns to be very specific in their targeting. You know, if they are the ones who are picking up the applications, delivering the applications, getting a log to see when the ballots are mailed out, and then calling or going to people's homes, going in their mailboxes, like they know exactly who, what, when, how people are voting, and that is not secure.
Yeah, and it undermines this pillar of democracy, and actually makes voting not just not secret or sacred, but it actually opens up people to harm, right? So people are having their vote stolen from them without even knowing that that's what's happening. Another thing that we wanted to highlight is that the current fines and penalties are not working. And so, you know, one of the tragedies about what is happening in Bridgeport is that when someone like Wanda Jeter Pataky, the vice chair of our local Democratic Town Committee, is going to a voter and having a voter sign an application for an absentee ballot that they're not eligible for, she's actually exposing that voter to a Class D felony. So that voter doesn't know that they're committing fraud, right? But that is exactly what that application says, that if you sign this application falsely, you are being exposed to possible charges of Class D felonies. Now, luckily, the state has understood that the problem is with the campaigns and the people who are circulating absentee ballot applications, and so they are not bringing charges against any individual voters. But the system exposes everyone really to criminal activity, and so that is why we saw Wanda Jeter Pataky charged with 92 counts of election fraud. Right? Each count comes with 5 years, up to 5 years, because each count is a Class D felony. So she is looking at significant and serious jail time, which is really frustrating, very sad, you know, makes me very angry. But the other thing is that those charges have not deterred her. So the situation with the grapes, the truck of grapes actually happened this summer for this upcoming election that we just had, right? So she was already facing 92 counts of election fraud and has continued to circulate absentee ballot applications fraudulently. And what we want to show you actually right now is what the absentee ballot report looks like when you get it in Bridgeport from the town clerk. And we want to show you what the disparities look like when ballot harvesting is happening in one district and not in another. Okay, so can everybody see this? Or should I try to make it larger?
If you can make it a little bit larger.
Okay.
Perhaps one at a time.
Okay.
All right.
There.
So this is what the first page of the report looks like. You see the town, you see the assembly districts. These are all of our city council voting districts. And then these are all the codes for what different things mean when you're reading the report. Okay, so this is the first page. And so you can see, right, just like we said, here are the voters' names, here are their addresses. This M means issue type, means it was an application that was mailed. This is the date it was issued. This is the date that the ballot was returned, right? And it was returned in the mail. Okay, so all of that is available. Now, this is my city council district. I live in the 130th. So let's see how many pages of absentee ballots came out of the 130th district. There's 1 page, 2 pages, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 pages total, right? And you can see down here, it actually gives you a count. 49 voters requested absentee ballots in the 130th district. Okay. The next district.
The 131st district is where I live. And the same is true. You get all the names, the how it was requested, the date it was issued, the return date, and everything like that. And so the how many pages in my district? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 3.
Oh.
3.
3.
There were 3 in my district, right? My district and Callie's district.
Yeah, you had 34 voters total.
Yeah.
Request an absentee.
Didn't have hot primaries, right?
Right.
Didn't have hot elections. But let's go to the area where we, had a lot of activity.
So this is actually the district in which
We know.
new complaints were made to the State Elections Enforcement Commission just 2 weeks ago about Alfredo Castillo being harvesting ballots again during this election.
And I just want you to note that when we're looking at this page, you see all these addresses they're all on the same street. So everyone on this street is voting absentee. They're just going from house to house to house. 557 Arctic Street, 564 Arctic Street, 569, 805, right? We see this over and over again where whole blocks and whole buildings where people live are voting. And let's count how many in this district. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Hold on, it's going too fast.
Oh, sorry.
Right, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 8, go back up, right?
Well, we have the second precinct.
19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Stop for a second. Look at everyone at 376 East Washington. Everyone in every apartment is voting using an absentee.
What were we on?
Like 21, I think 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 37. A total of 491 people. 431 of them are Democrats. 15 are Republican. 20 right? Like have all voted absentee, and they're whole blocks. Like this is the last street we're on. Look at 257 William Street, 298 William Street, 355 William Street, 363 William Street. So you mean to tell me that everyone on a street is eligible for absentee voting the way our current system is set up? Like, there's no way. There is no way. And that everyone in a household is eligible.
Right. Right. So now we want to, if I can find where my presentation went.
There
Oh, there
it
it is. Okay. Now we want to just talk quickly, so some solutions and then take some Q&A.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have been thinking deeply about what it would mean to reimagine our system of absentee voting in our state. You know, we passed the constitutional amendment that removed the need for excuses. So our question is, do we even need an application? Why is that even necessary, right? Once you are a registered voter, can we just have a mechanism in which voters can select to be a vote at home voter? And you are someone who gets your ballot mailed to you every time.
Right.
Um,
That's how they do it in California.
if we want to keep the application, if that feels important, you know, can we look to Massachusetts as a model? They have kept an application, or they have an application, but it is something that can only be completed by a voter or the voter's immediate family or caregiver. So there is no such thing as circulating applications. It doesn't exist in Massachusetts. So it ends the candy, like the kid in the candy store, like the gateway to all the fraud, right?
And the third solution is if we pass a bill that simply removes the excuses from the current application and nothing changes about the system, how are we really expanding democracy in Connecticut? And we're offering these three solutions because we've heard that there's already a bill that just does number three, right? That just simply removes the excuses from the current application. And nothing about circulators, nothing about letting voters choose whether they want to vote by mail. None of that exists. So I think we can open it up and take questions. I know I would like to see our state take the issues that are prevalent in Bridgeport, but not exclusive to Bridgeport, right? So this happens in other cities as well, but people just haven't really gotten caught in the way that they've been getting caught here, mostly because we're out here fighting.
Right. We've
You
been
know,
at it
we've
for
been
10
at
years.
it for 10 years now. But we need to protect voters, and we need to, if democracy is the number one threat that's facing our nation right now, like we have to take seriously the democracies of our local governments, because as our local governments go, the nation goes.
Callie and Gemeem, thank you so much. That was super informative. I have to say, and then Pam, I see that your hand is raised. I'm going to speak for like 3 seconds. I have to say that I found it very interesting when you were pointing out that it's every apartment, you know, because you can see pages and pages and it's like, I don't know how big Bridgeport is. I don't know what that really like amounts to. But when you were showing that it's like apartment B10 and B11 and B12 and B12, you know, that really like said something to me. But I'm going to let Pam ask her question.
We also have a question in the chat. From Erica, how was the fraud initially uncovered? But Pam, why don't you go first, then I'll read this one. It might have been accident.
Can you hear me now?
She must be muted or
Oh,
something.
okay. I'll just read the rest of
Or
Eric.
she doesn't have her
She's
earplugs
getting
in.
on.
Here
I've
she
been
goes.
I've been having audio issues. I have two
Oh, okay.
questions. They're both related about existing rules here in Connecticut, and if you know, in some of the other benchmark states that you were talking about. When you were going through the report you looked at, some of the people looked like they had picked up 200 and even more than 200 applications at a time. Is there any limitation whatsoever, or if you had asked for 1,000, would somebody who wanted to pick up 1,000 be able to get an unlimited number?
You want to answer?
Yes, you can pick up 1,000.
Mhm.
Yes.
And are there any restrictions whatsoever for somebody who's doing that kind of circulation on where or for whom they do it? It's just, or is it completely unrestricted in any way?
Unrestricted. If Pam wanted to come in and pick up 1,000, 1,500, or 5,000, she could go in and say, I want 1,000, 1,500, or 5,000. You'd have to sign your name to that log, and they would have to issue you those applications. The town.
And then once you've got them, there are no real restrictions on where you go.
No.
And is that true, or do you know, in neighboring states like Massachusetts or California that you were benchmarking on some other issues?
They don't have circulators, so you
By
can't.
legislation, they don't have circulators.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So that would be a place to think about as well then, in addition, is not necessarily making it not possible to be a circulator, but to narrow the scope of it. So if you were the League of Women Voters, or you were Common Cause, or you were some organization that was in some way vetted with the registrars, um, then you could, on your table have a pile like, here, take one if you want to fill it out. But but uh but it would be more vetted than it is now. And then the other thing I was curious about is, right now we can request an application online, right?
Yeah.
And that might be also a tool if you're like running a senior residence or something, and you have many people in your building who legitimately want to order one, but maybe aren't making the trip themselves I'm just trying to, I don't want to, I don't want to think of this as like restricting access to votes for people who genuinely do want to utilize
Well,
the
I
right they have.
I think
So
that
I'm just imagining like a lot of people, 150 people living in a senior center, going over and finding a way to legitimately order a absentee ballot that they might actually really want to use. And I don't want to think about harming them in the efforts to restrict and solve the obvious real problems that you guys are working with.
Well, Kelly, Gemeem, why don't you, I'm sorry, because I've heard you, the solution you recommend is a really good solution that doesn't, I think, that doesn't, because Pam and everybody else on this call is like me. We want everybody to vote. We want to help make it easier for everybody to vote. But your solution is the Massachusetts solution, which I'll let you explain what the Massachusetts solution is.
Yeah. So in the state of Massachusetts, you still have to apply for an absentee ballot. So just there's that, right? You have to apply for one. In our slide at the end, and we can send this slide deck out so that you can look back over it. The first thing that we said in the solutions was, why do we need an application? Isn't that a barrier in and of itself? And when we register to vote, or when we go to the registrar of voters office, or online, couldn't there just be a button that we click that says now that we don't need excuses, I just would like to be a vote at home voter. Like, from now on, send me a ballot unless I tell you otherwise, right? So that is one system that we could try to pursue that enfranchises all of us equally, and also keeps the chain of command of our ballot between the voters and election officials, right? So the process is just between us and our election officials. Secondary to that, if we think as an advocacy community that we want to keep an application, and that is important, then in Massachusetts, the application is available online. You can actually apply online, just like in Connecticut. So you could get the application, print it out, sign it, send it in. You could apply online through an online portal. You could actually just email your town clerk and say, I'd like an absentee ballot, please. And they will send you one, right? So an email is sufficient. But the way that the law works in Massachusetts, only the voter can do that, or the family or the caregiver. And the reason for that is, right, that again, the process of starting to vote, it needs to stay between voters and election officials, right? That's what we're saying, is that the circulation of applications, whether it is in good faith by the league and common cause, or whether it is in bad faith by partisans who want to try and steal people's votes, what it is doing is it's opening up the ballot box in a way that is making our elections unsafe.
There's another question in the chat. I'll go back to Erica's.
Hi.
How was the fraud initially uncovered, and have the police been cooperative in the fraud investigations? Also, what benefit or rationale do representatives like Blumenthal or Murphy have in endorsing these elections or endorsing these candidates?
The fraud has been uncovered in several different ways. The police in one case, actually was a problem because, like we said, we are living in an authoritarian state, and our town committee chairman had directed in one case a police officer to go and pick up absentee ballot applications out of people's mailboxes. And that officer had to get on the stand and testify to that. So it's not a black and white kind of issue with the police department. Again, we are living in a place where we essentially have Ganem, who is a Trump, and Mario Testa, who is like the mastermind, the puppet master behind. Part of it was discovered in 2019 when Bridgeport Generation Now votes did a canvass right after the election with Marilyn Moore, and knocked on doors and uncovered lots of evidence, and then sued, brought a lawsuit, the first of its kind in Connecticut, where voters were challenging an election. In addition to that, the Connecticut Hearst Media did an investigative report where they also knocked on doors, and there's lots of articles from 2019 if you want to see about that. The latest uncovering happened in the past election, where video was leaked to the John Gomes campaign that showed Wanda Jeter Padalecki and lots of other people depositing absentee ballots into drop boxes in 2 different locations in the city. And once that surveillance video was leaked, the John Gomes campaign sued, and the election was overturned, and Seek opened up several investigations from 2019 through 2023 and 2024, and those cases have been referred to the chief state's attorney for criminal investigation. And so as a result of that ongoing investigation, because it's still not over, so far 11 people have been swept up in the charges and been charged.
Callie, Gemeem, that's a lot. I just noticed the time, and if people still have questions and they still want to discuss this, that's fine. But for anybody that's like, I had an hour and that's my hour, I just wanted to throw in the chat our contact information so that if anyone has a question, wants to get in touch with Rachel or myself, or has some feedback about our meetings, I'm putting all of that in the chat. So please feel free to get in touch with us however is most comfortable for you. I saw that also in the chat, Erica. You said that you couldn't raise your hand, but you did have another question. So I'm going to be quiet again.
Hello. Um, so I guess I'm just a little bit confused about, well, first of all, I don't know really anything about Massachusetts process for absentee ballots, so maybe this is just like a me problem that I can look up later. But I'm also like, I have a general wherewithal of what like the implications of that, but I'm just wondering like what that process looks like, how that actually would prevent fraud, and then also like what unintended consequences could have come of that maybe in Massachusetts or could happen in Connecticut. Because normally I'm like, make it easier. Like, voter fraud isn't a, it's a negligible problem. What you're describing in Bridgeport is insane. So I'm just wondering, like, what the balance is and why specifically Massachusetts as a model, I guess.
Well, voter fraud is a negligible problem. What we have here in Bridgeport and other places is we have a structural issue where political operatives have the opportunity to manipulate voters. So we don't have individual voters going out and deciding, oh, I'm going to vote twice or I'm going to defraud the system in some way. That is not happening.
Yeah.
Right? What we have is a accessibility problem.
Yep.
And the reason we have an accessibility problem because it was built into our system, and that system needs to change. The reason why you don't see a lot of quote voter fraud issues in a state like Massachusetts is because they do not allow third parties like campaigns and even good organizations like ours and League of Women Voters and Common Cause, we are not allowed to get in between a voter and election officials. And that seems to be the key. So people have the right to use an absentee ballot application. There's like an absentee ballot. There's nothing wrong with using an absentee ballot.
Right.
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 There's like, it's a good thing if, to be able to vote from home. What is not a good thing is people being exposed to criminals who, for whatever reason, want to manipulate and steal their votes.
I think it was actually eye-opening for us. We had a pre-call with Tisha and Lisa and Rachel, and Lisa comes from California and had signed up to be a vote from home voter in California, meaning like just mail me a ballot. I'm not going to go to the polls. And I asked her like, okay, so I'm curious, like, did at any point when you were receiving campaign literature or like outreach from a campaign or phone banking, text banking, did you feel like you were being targeted by the way that you chose to vote? And Lisa said, no, I feel like I just got the same information that everyone else got, right? And that's because in California, who has signed up to be a vote at home voter and who is going to the polls is not like determining the outcome of elections, right? It's not driving campaign strategy. It's not, campaigns are not trying to like harvest votes out of a certain population for the way that they're voting. And that has a lot to do with probably the accessibility of the information. So in Connecticut, we have this application process, the circulation of all these applications, the publication of the AB report, the and it all is like public information, and campaigns use it. And I just want to add, while Bridgeport is the most high profile in the state, this is definitely happening in Hartford. It has come up in other towns over the years. It is a bipartisan problem. It's not just Democrats. Republicans actually got caught doing it in North Carolina. There was a big scandal there a couple years ago related to the same behavior. So,
Can I just say that the simple solution that I've heard Gemeem and Callie talk about is make it extremely easy for everyone to get their own absentee ballot, so that some political operative coming to your door is not giving you a unique opportunity to get an absentee ballot. Make it as easy for everyone to do it as possible. That way you don't restrict access to the ballot, but you also don't give power to corrupt people who, from either party, who want to take advantage of disadvantaged people. And the problem in Connecticut with that, there are two problems. One, political parties want to have control over who gets an absentee ballot. And two, it'll cost money to make absentee ballots universally available. And then we hit up against this damn, this Connecticut thing of steady habits and cheapness. And it's a real problem. It's a real problem. We've got to make it, because everybody on this call wants everybody to be able to vote, but we also do not want it to be corrupt. We don't want it to be, we don't want it to be controlled in this way. And it would be really great if the political parties would clean themselves up and expel these bad actors, but they're not going to do it, it doesn't seem. So we need to change the rules of absentee balloting to make it hard for them to cheat.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, Frances has a question and she doesn't know how to raise her hand or whatever.
Yeah, I
So I
have
want to make
no
sure
idea.
that Frances gets to ask her question.
Well, I think some of it's been answered.
That's sweet.
I'm not going to pussyfoot around. Bridgeport has a Democratic Party problem. It's a Democratic Party that did this, and they got caught. I'm so pleased that you did the work to get these people caught. I still do not understand why you can take out 1,000 absentee ballots. That to me is crazy. Trying to get an absentee ballot out of our town clerk is like trying to get blood out of a stone.
Got it.
So to me,
what town do you live in?
Ridgefield, lovely town clerk, but she's not giving you anything more than, oh, it's for my child. And even then she says, well, your child has to let me know that they want it. I'm like, okay, fine, right. So I just can't see why anyone should be allowed to take out multiple absentee ballots. That to me is like a huge red flag. And I don't know why that isn't one of the quickest fixes.
Well, exactly. That could be one of the steps towards reform, like if it's a step-by-step process that we take. In a hilarious move, right? 2 sessions ago, we said, okay, how about we limit it to 5? Just 5. Everyone can have 5. What if we did that? And the GAA committee came out with a bill that said everyone can have 5 at a time.
So people just stood in a line.
We were like, wait,
and took out 5 and then got back in the line and took out another 5 and got back in the line. So,
we were like, that really doesn't solve the problem at all.
Thank you for bringing this to, I think most of the people on this call know about the problems Bridgeport's had. It's the mechanics of how it was done I wasn't fully aware of, and it's shameful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Did somebody else have a
Margaret's got a
Yeah,
question.
I just wanted to thank you very much. And you're very brave, and you must, to get away with what you're doing is in Bridgeport. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also want to have you guys talk about where to get more information about this, because I listened to all five of your podcast episodes. It's like very informative and entertaining. So kudos to you for being able to keep it light because it's not a light issue. But when's the next one coming out? And can you tell people about that?
Yeah, so we started, yeah, we have a radio show and blog on WPKN 89.5 FM. We are about to drop our sixth episode, and we were on the Saturday slot, but now we've like moved up to prime time once a month on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. If you can't listen live on WPKN, you can sign up on our email list, and we send out a link to the podcast right after it airs. So you could do that, but just go to
Yeah, Rachel put the link in the chat.
look at that.
Yeah, WPKN. You can listen to all the episodes there. It's also available on Apple Podcasts. If you use Apple Podcasts, you can just search the title also in Bridgeport, and it'll come right up.
Cool. Thank you so much. And does anybody have any final questions? I know we're over time. I don't know how Callie and Gemeem's time is.
Oh, we're good. We could talk
Okay.
about this forever.
Francis? Oh, maybe she was just saying goodbye. Before, I wanted to say before people leave that the Unite and Rise session coming up is about how to build partnerships with other grassroots organizations to protect and defend democracy and how to strengthen those partnerships and how to show up. And it's I think, going to be a very good session. And the League of Women Voters US just announced today, or no, not today, last week, that they're going to have a committee for Unite and Rise 8.5 to an advisory committee that includes Erica Chenoweth, who originated the research about this 3.5% of the population needs to be engaged in strategic, nonviolent protest and activism to make meaningful, lasting change. So we'll send out information about that and about our Unite and Rise 8.5. And does anybody have any last updates from their corner of the state? Or Callie and Gemeem, do you have any last words?
Well, I'll just say thank you so much for having us and for all of the questions. I think I just want to make a plea to everyone here that we see the direction that our nation is going. And we have to do everything in our power to stop that from happening. And we're all in this together in a unique situation where Bridgeport has already experienced what is happening in the nation. And so that makes us, that puts us in a unique position to fight harder, to fight together, and to know that we can do what is right. We can fight in a principled manner, and we have to hold all of our elected officials accountable to what has happened in Bridgeport. It doesn't mean that we don't, support this one or that one or what have you, but our elected officials from the federal level down to the local level needs to be asked about what is going on in Bridgeport, because how do you fight for our national democracy and not care about people right in your backyard? So I'm just making that personal plea. I was born and raised in Bridgeport, and we are fighting to enjoy all the rights of our democracy, and we deserve that.